Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Before we begin, I'll have a couple of technical notes. If you encounter connection or audio problems during this webinar, please call WebEx Technical Support at 1-866-229-3239. We'll also post that number on the chat box on your screen. Unfortunately, there are some connection issues we may not be able to resolve during the webinar. However, we are recording today's webinar and it will be posted on our website along with a copy of the slides used in today's presentation. On today's webinar, we will review the Second Chance Act Comprehensive-Based Adult Reentry Program for Categories 1 and 2 grant recipients. Throughout the webinar, we encourage you to submit questions in the Q&A box on the bottom right corner of your screen. We will have time at the end of the webinar to address your questions, and we'll do our best to get through as many as possible. Today, you'll hear from myself, Jan Del Cruz, Senior Policy Analyst at Council of State Government's Justice Center, and Andre Bethea, Policy Advisor for Corrections at the Bureau of Justice Assistance. After brief introductions about our organizations, we'll provide a brief overview of the Community Reentry Grant Program. We'll then provide an overview of planning and implementation, a bit about the process in the Planning and Implementation Guide document. We'll then discuss a little bit about technical assistance support that you are to receive as grantees, before finally wrapping up with a Q&A session. Please note that contact information for each presenter will be posted at the end of the webinar. I'm now going to turn it over to Andre Bethea to tell you a little bit about the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andre Bethea. I'm the Policy Advisor for Corrections at the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, where our mission is to provide leadership and services in grant administration and criminal justice policy development to support local, state, and tribal justice strategies to achieve safer communities. Congress has appropriated this agency, the Bureau of Justice of Assistance, or BJA, to administer the Second Chance Act grants, which support state, local, and tribal governments and nonprofit organizations in their work to reduce recidivism and improve outcomes for people returning from incarceration. The Second Chance Act has supported over $300 million in reentry investments across the country. Back to Jan.
Thank you, Andre. Now a little bit about the CSG Justice Center. The Justice Center is a national nonprofit organization that serves policymakers at the local, state, and federal levels from all branches of government. That provides practical, nonpartisan advice and evidence-based and consensus-driven strategies to increase public safety and strengthen communities. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the National Reentry Resource Center. As Community Reentry Second Chance Act grantees, you'll be provided technical assistance by the National Reentry Resource Center, or the NRRC. The NRRC is funded by the Bureau of Justice Assistance and has delivered TA to over 600 Second Chance Act grantees since its inception. Sorry about that. The NRC provides individualized, intensive, and targeted technical assistance and training to grantees and is the go-to resource for professionals in the field. We'll discuss later on this webinar how some of this technical assistance may look. Now I'll turn it over to Andre, who will provide us with an overview of the Community Reentry Grant Program.
Thanks, Jan. So the Second Chance Act Community-Based Reentry So far has over $110 million in funding, has supported 241 nonprofit community-based organizations, and has been in 47 states, including the District of Columbia. The program goals and objectives are to implement or expand on reentry programs that demonstrate strong partnership with corrections, parole, probation, law enforcement, and other reentry service providers. This includes case management plans as well as partnerships. Congratulations to each and every one of you. We have both categories on this call. The category 1 are the persons or the entities that received up to $1 million per grant. You'll start off with $200,000 for planning, and then after completion of your action guide or your planning and implementation guide, you'll move on to $800,000 for implementation. And your goal is to serve at least 150 persons. Under Category 2 is a much smaller grant, up to $500,000. And for planning, the Category 2 grantees will receive $100,000 for planning and then shift over after completing the planning and implementation guide to receive the additional $400,000 for implementation. And that particular entity, those entities in Category 2 must serve at least 75 persons. Again, congratulations to all fiscal year 2019 grantees under this particular cohort. We have 7 nonprofit community-based organizations in Category 1, as well as 4 Category 2 grantees, and totaling of almost a little close to 9.5 in Second Chance Act funding. And as represented on this map, we try to be as diverse as possible. So I want to welcome in Category 1 some returns as well as newer grantees and newer organizations. Berrien Cass Van Buren Workforce Development Board Incorporated, Family Services of Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, Goodwill Industries of Northwest Ohio, The Lord's Place Incorporated in Florida, Lutheran Social Services of South Dakota, Roca Incorporated over in Massachusetts, Safer Foundation, although in Illinois, will be doing their work in Iowa, as well as in Category 1, I want to count the MBI Research Institute Incorporated, who will be doing a great work in D.C. Now, as far as the Category 2 grantees, there are actually 3 of them, because MBI is actually considered Category 1. Sorry for the mishap. But we have the Insight Garden Program in California, the Lifehouse Incorporated from West Virginia, as well as the Link of Coleman County Incorporated in Alabama. Again, congratulations to you all. You are joining or rejoining, in some cases, a long commitment of Second Chance Act grantees. So here go the expectations. Minimum of 150 persons served for Category 1. Minimum of 75 persons served for Category 2. Also looking at medium to high risk of recidivating as determined by a validated risk assessment tool. All individuals involved must be over the age of 18 and convicted or adjudicated, I should say, as an adult, and incarcerated at the time of enrollment. We'll leave that up in the air, and we can talk about that on a one-on-one basis. We're also expecting you to have partnerships with your corrections through demonstration of a current MOU or MOA Please keep in mind that Tracy Willis, as well as myself, are available for calls, and we're familiar with many of the agencies that you'll be partnering with. So we're happy to broker those discussions should things have changed, elected officials, things that happen obviously in local government or in state government that may change after being awarded a grant. The integration of risk and needs assessments, whether your entity is doing the assessment or the correction agency actually does it and shares the information with you, that should be used in the determination of the program and the case management output. Comprehensive case management, again, and also knowing the baseline recidivism rate and working to move it, hopefully decrease it. As well as we're expecting you to work with an evaluator to plan to measure your outcomes as well as conduct a program evaluation. The expectation is that whether you have one on board or you have to change the entity that you use or either the person or the school or just an evaluation center, we are expecting something of a program evaluation at the end of this program cycle. So just as indicated, about feasibility, proprietary accuracy, and many of the other things that you would walk the steps with your evaluator. Again, definitely looking forward to the calls and understanding how that partnership is going to work along with corrections. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Jan Dela Cruz to kind of work on unpack the planning and implementation guide overview.
Thank you, Andre. So once you've worked with BJA to clear your budget, you'll have 180 days in your planning period. And during this planning period, Category 1 grantees, as Andre has mentioned, will have access to $200,000 of their grant funds. And Category 2 grantees will have access to $100,000 of their funds. During this period, you'll be working with your technical assistance provider to fill out your planning and implementation guide, or P&I guide. It's important to note that your P&I guide will be submitted to BJA, and they will be reviewing, and it'll have to be approved prior to moving into the implementation phase. During this phase of the program, the planning phase, it's important to revisit some of your main components of your program to assess whether there are any capacity issues or any need to fill in the gaps anywhere. Make sure you review your proposal. Does it still hold up? Are there any inaccuracies that may have been, true at the time of writing it that are not, the reality at the moment? Also don't forget to include your partners in this process as well. Reach out to them again and begin the coordination and the communication process. And don't forget to include them in your TA discussions as well. Now, the purpose of the guide is to assist grantees in ensuring a plan is in place for implementation. The P&I guide is meant to flesh out the ideas put forth in your proposal and identify strengths and/or areas for improvement. It'll help establish baseline information for the proposed program and help your TA provider target their assistance. One key benefit of the guide is that it provides a single document to reference key programmatic information. While further details may be laid out in program manuals and policy and procedure documents, the P&I guide would be a good reference point for program staff and partners to grasp what the program is trying to accomplish. Category 1 and Category 2 grantees will have different guides. These are the sections for the Category 1 P&I guide. Getting started and identifying your goals, defining your target population, reviewing the service provision and just the inventory of the services provided, program evaluation, data collection, sustainability, and with two appendices, one of the logic model and the other for supporting resources. And these are the sections for Category 2. For the Category 2 P&I guide, they're similar in some ways, but the guides they're tailored to the unique characteristics of each category. It's getting started in identifying goals, project partners, target population basics, process flow and design, project evaluation, sustainability, with an appendix with supporting documents and resources. After receiving the guide, please fill it out being as accurate, clear, and concise as you can. You should be bringing in program partners for the parts of the guide that address their involvement in the program, such as your corrections agencies, and your evaluator and treatment partners, and all relevant staff as well. And just to reiterate, you shouldn't be going at it alone. Bring in other staff. Your TA coach is there to help you walk through the exercise of the guide. Be sure to dedicate call times to work on the guide during TA sessions. And remember, during the planning phase, this is a living document. It should be kept up to date up until the day you submit to BJA. Now I'll talk a little bit about the support that's available to you as Second Chance Act grantees. And again, for the purposes of being clear, the BJA and the Bureau of Justice Assistance will provide grant management and compliance guidance to your and your state policy advisor will be your main point of contact on these matters. The NRC will provide the programmatic technical assistance targeted specifically to your grant. Tracy Willis, who's also on the call today on our webinar, she'll be available during the Q&A session should there be any questions directed to her. She will be your main point of contact at BJA. The designated NRC TA lead will provide and coordinate support in several areas, and these include the completion of the P&I guide, identifying measures and strategies to track progress, content and facilitation, supporting sustainability plans, and sharing successes with stakeholders. And these are just some examples of what technical assistance may look like for your grant. This is not an exhaustive list, and it may look differently tailored to your specific programs, but you'll have monthly calls and various other activities, just depending on the specific needs of your program. So what happens next? If you haven't done so already, please review the SCA Grantee General Orientation webinar. This webinar was presented to all Second Chance Act fiscal year 2019 grantees and covers key information from BJA regarding your grants management process, including reporting requirements. Your TA providers will reach out to you soon to set up your introductory calls. You will then have a chance to talk about your program and any changes from the original proposals you anticipate. And here's some final good tips for a head start. Be sure to have all relevant parties on calls. Begin those partner conversations early, especially with your evaluator. Also, when it comes to filling out the guide, don't go at it alone again. This should be a collaborative effort, and input from all partners and personnel will be crucial to completing the guide. Lastly, be sure all grant information is current. Any changes to the program, whether any moving parts or even points of contact in official grant documents, should be current. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact your TA provider or Tracy Willis at BJA. And lastly, be sure to ask your TA provider for other relevant NRC resources across a variety of subjects. Your TA provider can also point you in the direction of other resources outside of the NRC to help guide you and assist you in reaching your program goals. At this time, we'll go ahead and take questions. Please remember to use the Q&A box on your screen to submit your questions. Okay, I have a question here. When will we receive the P&I guide?
Hi, everyone. This is Andre Bethia, and I want to respond that we are undergoing a transition in our TA technical assistance provider. So the new provider who's also on the call will be the American Institute of Research. I would stress that each and every one be patient. Let's do a slow walk. This is a huge transition, and because it is huge, you can expect that we will try to get you your P&I guides as soon as relatively possible. However, in the meantime, Tracy and myself, um, some of you who have already met, others we look forward to introducing ourselves, are happy to schedule a call with you to kind of unpack any issues with your budget. We want to start working on getting budget clearances. We want to start making sure that we deal with special conditions that may put you in a position to not receive your planning funds. So I think we have some things that we can start working towards as we await the finalization of the planning and implementation guides, also known as action guides. And I'll stop there. But please, the emails are up there. And if you don't know me, you will get to, we'll have a wonderful formal introduction between myself, your entity, and your BJ point of contact, Ms. Tracy Willis.
Thanks, Andre. I have another question here. Is our first quarterly report due in BJ PMT in January? If so, when will we receive login info?
Yes, that is correct. Your first quarterly PMT, which for the most part will be all zeros because you will not have started any information yet, will be reported as it is always deadlined at January 30th of every year. And I want everyone to know that the performance metrics team will, in fact, be doing another set of webinars in January, and that is when you'll receive all of your information regarding the PMT reporting. Again, please note that most, if not all of you, will be reporting zero. You'll just go through the process and understand what is required of you in future reporting periods.
Thanks, Andre. Waiting to see if get any more questions. I have a question here. Andre, I have one. When AIR was identified as our evaluated research partner prior to becoming the TA, will this be a conflict of interest moving forward?
I think that you want to have the conversation with myself and Tracy. If in fact AIR has been identified as your researcher partner, then maybe that warrants a discussion. My email is on the screen. Please shoot me an email. Let's schedule a call. Tracy and I will start to have that discussion with you, and we'll go from there. But thank you.
Thanks, Andre. One here, pull it up here. On the timing, the 180 days, does that begin after the budget is cleared or after as of October 1st?
Tracy, you want to speak up on that one?
Okay, can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. The 180 days of planning, does that begin at October 1st or after your budget is cleared?
I believe it's after your budget is cleared, but let me check my special conditions while you guys take another call, and I'll type back in and let you know for sure.
Sure. We'll give Tracy a few moments to answer that. And if we run out of time, then please feel free to email myself, Andre. I have another question here. When is the latest we can submit a budget adjustment request again if we want to move some money from year one planning to implementation?
Okay. In terms of the budget, We don't dictate year one money, year two money, year three money. When we award the funds, it's for the full amount of whatever it is. So there's no need to request to move money from one year to another. If you're looking to move money, um, and the moving of the money is 10% or less than the total award, then you will submit what's called a program officer approval game through the GMS system, and you're going to attach a revised budget and budget narrative. If your request is more than 10% of the award, or you're making an adjustment to the indirect cost line item, you have to submit what's called a budget modification game. Again, with a revised budget and budget narrative. And with both these games, you have to provide detailed justification of what the move is for, why you want to move moves around, and things of that nature.
Thank you, Tracy.
Okay.
And I do see that there may be some issues with the audio, but please be advised that we are recording this webinar, and we will send out the information afterwards. We have a few more minutes for any more questions. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. If there are any lingering questions that you may want to reach out to any one of us, please do. Again, we will be sending a recording of this webinar and the PDF slides to you.
Hold on, Jane, before you let go,
Yes.
I just want to pipe in that the individual who asked the question about the use of funds with the action plan.
Yes.
It says for the sole purpose of establishing an action plan within 180 days of receiving final approval of the project's budget from OCFO. So when your award gets a final financial clearance, it's 180 days from that.
Got it.
From October 1.
Got it. So it's 180 days from your final financial clearance date.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. Thank you, Tracy.
You guys are welcome.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining today's webinar, and you should receive an email in the next week or so with a link to the recording of this webinar and a PDF version of today's slides. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.